Hey guys, Thomas here from IT Career Guidance. Today I wanted to share with you 5 study strategies that I've learned over the last 4 years to help me be a better student for IT certifications. So I've been studying for certifications for the last 4 years. I've done 4 so far, the CCENT, which is now kind of dead, CCNA round switch, CCNA security, and the RHCSA. And currently I'm pursuing the CCNP Core Enterprise Core exam 350-401, which is the first of 2 exams you need to take to get your CCNP. So a little bit of background, when I first started studying for certifications, it was just I would buy the book and I'd try to read it from front to back. I didn't know what I was doing. It was very frustrating. I tried video courses and that helped too, but then again at the same time I would just wander off and I would go back and be like, I learned it, and I would kind of lose this. I wasn't sure if I actually understood what I was learning. What really helped me was going to class, but in our situation right now with coronavirus, you can't do much. So in terms of self-study, which I've gotten much better at over the years, I had to learn how to first off understand how my mind worked, how to study better, how to make sure that I'm actually retaining information, and that I take the practice exam, that I'm actually learning it and not just memorizing answers. So I want to share with you 5 things. First one is I learned what kind of learner I am. So before, as I mentioned, I would just go through and read things. I decided to take a online assessment to help me determine if I'm a visual, hands-on, auditory type of learner. Well, turns out I'm a visual and auditory types of learner. So I did more research into it, and it turns out that if I were to read and also speak the words out at the same time, I would retain it better, and not to mention it helped me focus. I can actually stay with the topic. And what I started adding to it though was I started actually running my finger under the words as I would read them. Now, you may think this is overkill. You're reading it out loud, you're running your finger, and you're also reading from the book line by line. What this did for me though is that it allowed me to focus, make sure I was fully with it, and if there was a distraction, my finger was actually right where I left off at. So that way if I were to grab my phone or if someone were to come into the room, then I would completely be with it. I highly recommend that. I don't listen to music, maybe ambient noise in the background like ocean waves. Otherwise though, I try to do everything in complete silence. Go online and see what kind of learner you are and see if that would make a difference for you. Like, I love videos, but there is just sometimes there's something missing for me. It gives me a false sense of knowing that I learned something, when really if I read it word by word and am able to go back, it makes more sense. The second strategy I learned was to take notes the right way. And I stopped copying word by word from slides and videos or from what's in the book, and instead I started practicing recall. Now, what is recall? Recall is when you learn something and then you try to recall it from memory yourself and see if you understand it. So then I combine it with the auditory and visual learning, meaning I would read something the way I do with my fingers and out loud, then I would look away from the book, and then I would try to explain it in my own words without looking at the book. And then once I felt like I had it down, I would try to write it down in my own words as well. Now that's a lot of steps to do something, but it really worked for me, meaning that I would not only try to recall it, repeat it, and then also put it in my own words. That way, when I would go back, I actually learned it faster this way, instead of trying to repeat everything at the end. And then also when I would review it, it was in my own words, so I understood it better. Sometimes the way textbooks are written for these certification exams are so technical that when you go back to read it, you have to kind of relearn everything. That's my own experience though. The next tip number 3 about studying, is that I use a lot of flashcards. In a video, Jocko Willink talks about he had to learn a concept, he would write down a flashcard right away. So then that way he was kind of double learning it, just like I did with the recall out loud and in writing. So when I do this in the flashcards as well, I can put it in Quizlet, so I'll make a set for each chapter I'm learning, and then I upload it there. Now, pretty much what I shoot for to put in each flashcard is I put the term for the vocab words, I put the term and the definition, and I take the key concepts that are at the end of every chapter and I make flashcards for those too. Sometimes those can be 2 to 3 flashcards per key concept, but then I just have to be creative in how I make the term. So then once you have all the terms and all the flashcards ready for yourself, then you can just do these 3 features I find super helpful in Quizlet. The first one being the learn feature. So when learn, they put the description in front of you of the term, and then they give you 4 options to choose from for being the term. So then you would choose the right one, and if you get it right, you move on to the next one. Now, after you get it right a couple times, it's usually about 2 or 3, they ask you to fill in the blank. So they'll give you the description and you have to pretty much write it out word for word for the term. And then once you're done with that and you pass that a couple times, then they introduce a new word. So that introduces the concept of chunking. So that way you're not taking in hundreds of vocab words at the same time, and instead you're doing maybe just 6 or 7 at a time, so that way your mind can actually process it and repeat it over and over again. To get through the learn feature, I like to do the matching feature. So that's kind of a way to increase my speed of how my mind is recalling the definitions of the topics of the study material. And what Quizlet does is they put all the terms and all the definitions on the screen, and then you have to match it. But what's really cool is they time it, so you gamify your studying essentially by doing this. What you do is that you try to beat your high score in terms of how fast you can do it. And so it gets pretty fun this way for myself. And then when you're finally done with those 2 features, then you could do the test feature, which is pretty much a practice exam where they take everything you did in that set and they test you with true and false, multiple choice, matching, and fill in the blank, which is pretty much like any real IT certification exam. So you're kind of already getting in the groove of how it works. Lastly, when I start doing really well in those practice exams, which this takes me about a day to do or so to kind of like review the chapter and really get the details in, I like to actually do a real practice exam from the textbook. So for this case, it's Pearson VUE, or if you have BOSTON, that's fine too, or whoever you bought your practice exam from. Then you go and do that. Now, the problem with practice exams though, is that if you get it wrong, you learn the right answer and you can't help but memorize it. And that becomes a huge issue. I try to do, if I get a question wrong, I try to really understand why that was the right one and why the others were wrong. And then when I do the practice test again, then I can say, okay, this is right because of this reason and these are wrong because of this reason. And that helps me avoid avoid memorizing questions and answers, and instead actually trying to learn something and try to take that information in. Once I start regularly passing the exam with 85, 95%, then I move on to the next chapter. And so that's how I break down the whole chapter and all the concepts, vocab words, the key terms that you got to keep in mind. We'll go into tip number 4. How my mind is when I'm studying. I just don't like read it and try to take it in. I try to take it from the approach that I will have to troubleshoot this in the future. And when you do that, you think, okay, if I have to troubleshoot this, what do I need to look for to make something work? And what do I have to look for to see if it's broken? So for me, when something's broken, you have to kind of like find out, okay, does it need this part in the configuration? Does it need this part in the configuration? Does it need that? That's kind of been my approach to studying. And the reason being is that I had an experience where one day I was super lazy to study and I just was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it today. I'm gonna do this tomorrow. Well, that same day, this topic I was supposed to study actually became a ticket at work and I had to troubleshoot it. And the guy I was working with didn't really understand it that well. And I didn't understand it at all. So I had to learn it on the fly and pretty much scramble to troubleshoot and learn it on the phone with the customer, which is extremely embarrassing and extremely difficult to do. I don't recommend you do that. So for me, that's my approach now because of that experience alone. 5th and final tip is you gotta make a time commitment. You gotta make this a regular thing to do because you'll never get it done. I'm not a big fan of saying like, today I'm gonna study 1 chapter or I'm gonna finish the exam by this date. For me, I take more broad goals like that. I'm gonna do my CCNP in 2020. That was my goal this year. And if I finish it at the last day of the year, that's cool. If I don't, that's cool too. But for me, like, I have to set a regular schedule to do this because if not, it doesn't become a habit. I like making my studying a routine. So if you want to make your studying a routine, try to set it at the same time every day. I like to do early mornings, very low distractions. My mind is calm. There's not much going on that day. No one's really shooting me texts or emails, so that's a perfect time to study. Family or something like that, or you have a job, you just got to carve it out. If you want to study, on your lunch break, before, after work, you just got to make it a regular routine. And by committing yourself, writing it down, saying this is my goal to do this, makes a huge difference. I highly recommend you do that. I have it in my personal journal where I write every single day. My goal is to get my CCNP. My goal is to make a video. My goal is to help somebody. Those are the kind of things that you should try to consider. I hope those 5 tips were super helpful for you guys. Leave any feedback in the comments below if these work, or if you have any other better recommendations to study. And if you guys liked this video, found it helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. I'm going to be coming out with more content in relation to studying, your career, resumes, certifications, job hunting. That's all what I'm really great at. I don't focus on the technicals in IT because they're way better technical teachers than I am, but I do make technical videos from time to time. Thanks guys so much.